The Whitman Bassow Environment Award is sponsored by Citi. The citation goes to Ian James, Steve Elfers, and Steve Riley of the Desert Sun, USA Today, for Pumped Dry, the Global Crisis of Vanishing Groundwater. The winner is a team from the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists, the Huffington Post, and other media partners. More than 80 journalists from more than 20 countries worked for more than a year documenting tragedies that occurred as projects funded by the World Bank failed to abide by that institution's rules. Accepting the award is Mike Hudson of the International Consortium for Investigative Journalists.
Hi, I'm Mike Hudson. There are other important people here. Sasha Shavkin, who was came up with the idea for the story and was the lead reporter, and Charlie Sennett, who's the editor-in-chief of the Ground Truth Project, which is one of our key partners on the project. So I just want to start with a scene. Gladys Chekmawa was weeding potatoes in her garden the day the men came to burn down her house. After her mother-in-law told her that rangers from the Kenya Forest Service were on their way, she strapped her one-year-old son on her back and hurried to her thatched roof home. She grabbed 2 tins of corn, blankets, plates, cooking pans, and hid in a thicket. She watched as the rangers set her house on fire. After they were gone, she came out to the thicket to see what was left. And she said, what used to be my house was now ashes. Some stories are too important to ignore, but sometimes they get ignored because they're too complex, too global, and too hard to get to. When Sasha proposed an investigation of the human and environmental toll of big projects bankrolled by the World Bank, we knew we were uniquely situated to do that because of ICIJ's commitment to big collaborations that work with journalists on the ground around the world. Some folks, you may have heard something about the Panama Papers project that we've been rolling out recently. That project had That project had 370 journalists from more than 100 news organizations. This is a small project. We had 80 journalists from 25 news organizations. And the thing that's really amazing about our partners, like the Ground Truth Project, like the Huffington Post, like El País, Fusion, WDR and NDR in Germany, and many others, is it's journalists who display something that journalists aren't often known for, a couple things, and that's teamwork and patience. The idea of sharing information with people that you normally think of your competitors and being willing to wait months, and in this case, almost a year before we publish is just an extraordinary thing. We reported on the ground in 14 countries. I was fortunate enough to go to Kosovo, which is one of the few countries in the world where they actually welcome Americans and American journalists. Ben Hallman from the Huffington Post went to Peru, where he was to report on a gold mine way up in the Andean mountains. He was so paranoid about having his notebook taken from him that he would shoot every page of his notebook with his iPhone and email it to himself so he wouldn't lose his notes. Sasha went into some pretty dangerous situations in Honduras and Ethiopia and South Sudan. I know when Sasha went to a military camp in a violence-stained region of Honduras, an Army colonel informed him that he already knew Sasha's itinerary for the day, where he was going, and who he planned to interview. And when Sasha asked him, how he acquired this information, he just said simply, "I am a military man." In Kenya's Western Highlands, rifle-toting officers from the Kenya Forest Service confronted Anthony Langat and Jacob Kushner, who were reporters with the Ground Truth Project, as they tried to interview Gladys Chekmawa and other indigenous members of the indigenous tribe, the Singwar, who claimed that a forest conservation program bankrolled by the World Bank was actually fueling mass evictions and burning of their homes. Anthony and Jacob were sort of detained essentially for about an hour, and they couldn't get out of the rangers whether or not they were actually being arrested or they were just talking. At one point they asked the rangers if they knew, if they were the ones who'd set the fire to the Singwar's homes the day before, and one of the rangers responded, "How do you know that they're not burning their own houses?" So This story, I think this award is a tribute to the reporters around the world in very difficult situations do the reporting, but I think it's also a tribute to people like Gladys Chippewa who are willing to speak out when things are wrong and really put themselves on the line. And Charlie, do you want to say?
Thank you. I'll keep this very quick. I want to thank Overseas Press Club and Mike, who has had a career in investigative journalism, helping people who are in need and who have been abused by powerful institutions, which is all that I aspire to achieve. And finally, I know this is cheesy, but to all the people who have spoken to us in the course of this investigation, development isn't easy, and it isn't even fair all of the time, but it doesn't have to be vicious and brutal and violent. And to the people who were victims of cases where that was the reality, it took a lot of courage for them to open up to our team, and that is very, very meaningful to us and to the changes in the World Bank's policy that their courage has brought about. Thanks.
I'll be even faster. I just want to thank Mike Hudson. He's an amazing editor, and ICIJ is an amazing partner. They are doing amazing collaborative work on investigative journalism, and you haven't even begun to hear from them yet. So here's to ICIJ.